So what does the vaccine have to do with Galatians chapter 3? Well, let's just think about that for a minute, because I think it takes us somewhere really important. In Galatians 3, amongst many other places in the New Testament, we're told that as a consequence of the gospel, our identity has been radically reconstructed in Christ. It has been reconstituted in God himself. It says in Galatians 3, there is now no longer Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, for you are now all one in Christ. Now, if you said that to a Jew, that their principal identity is now no longer their Jewishness, but the fact that they're a Christian and in Christ, or that to a Greek, they're no longer to think of themselves primarily as a Greek, but as a Christian, someone who's in Christ, who happens to be Greek, that would have been a huge hurdle for them to cross, because the Jewishness of the Jews and the Greekness of the Greeks was a source of enormous pride and deep cultural socio-identity. Their theology, their spirituality, their history was embedded in their heritage, their Jewishness, their Greekness. But Paul says something extraordinary, jumping off even from 2 Corinthians, I think it's chapter 5, it says, if anyone is in Christ, therefore they are a new creation, the old has gone, the new is here. So there's something new that God has done in Christ, and it is to reposition us primarily as God's children, adopted to be his daughters and sons. So what does this have to do with the vaccine? Well, it's a very current conversation, and I just want to give us an angle on this that I think is really important. If our primary sense of identity is political, that we identify with the right or with the left, then there's plenty of reasons to argue for or against a vaccine based on our politics. If our worldview is primarily as a modernist, a scientific modernist, then we can also argue strongly for or even against the vaccine. If we dig into the science, we might find all kinds of resources that back us up or refute the other side. Or if we are identifying ourselves with our social demographic, then there are also plenty of ways that we can make arguments for or against. Because the dark side of, say, the boomers in their demographic is that this rugged individualism, don't tell me how to fix it, don't tell me what to do, I've got it covered. The dark side of Gen Xers would be a skepticism that moves into cynicism and doubts and questions and rebels against almost anything that might come at them. The dark side of millennials would be this sense of entitlement of it's not up to me to fix it, it's for you to fix it. You know, I didn't make this problem, you did, so sort it for me. And there's this entitlement that comes with that demographic, it seems. So those are all the dark sides. So if we want to, we can lean into those and find plenty of reasons to kick up a real fuss about the vaccine. But here's the thing. If we are Christian, our primary identity is not our nationality, so it's not our Canadian or our Scottishness or our Russian or our South African or even our Mennonite heritage. It's not our heritage and it's not our nationality. If we are Christian, our primary identity is not political either, although we might have strong political opinions and convictions. Our primary identity is not our age demographic, millennial or Gen X or boomer or some other. Our primary principal identity as Christian is that we are in Christ. Therefore, our decision making, the way that we live into the world, is to be shaped predominantly, even exclusively, by our Christian conviction, the life that we now live in Christ and that we share together. Therefore, this is where this takes us. What is God's deepest revelation of himself? Well, it is Christ. And what is the mission of Jesus? It is to pour himself out for the rest of us, to regather us as one to the Father. And Jesus says, as the Father has sent me, so I now send you. So our lives as Christian is to be shaped by the mission of Jesus. This deep self-giving, this unrestrained selflessness toward the other. Through the cross, that was where it was all given. And he now calls us to live for the other, to give ourselves away on behalf of our communities, on behalf of the marginalized, on those who maybe need it the most and don't even understand. So my conviction here is that the Christ-shaped response to this medical crisis that we're sharing right now is to get the vaccine, because it's a selfless act. My politics might disagree with the vaccine, my understanding of science might question the vaccine, my demographic might rail against the vaccine, but those things are actually subservient to my identity in Christ. For there is now no longer any Jew, nor Greek, slave, nor free. Everything has been reconstituted in Christ. And if the shape of Jesus' life and mission is to give himself away on behalf of the other, then he calls us to do exactly the same. And in this instance, I believe that is even to somehow lay down our politics, lay down our strong opinions, and to do that which is right on behalf of the others, which is to make our communities and our churches and our gatherings and our families safer, and most particularly on behalf of the widows and the orphans, as I've said before. So, that's an identity issue that challenges us right to the deepest levels of what we think and why we think it. And I think it challenges us to reorient ourselves around Christ, even when we might feel the cost is extremely high, and our other convictions, our other sensibilities might be pulling in the opposite direction. So that's, I think, one of the calls of the gospel, to challenge the church, challenge Christians, challenge you and me to think deeply and give ourselves away even on behalf of others, just as Christ did for us. I'll leave that with you. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll keep the conversation going. Till next time, peace.